Hello everyone, if you've ever searched for stock ideas, you probably come across Alpha Picks by Seeking Alpha. They promise 2 high conviction stock picks every month, aiming to beat the market using data-driven rules-based strategies. But is it actually any good? Is it worth your money, or is it just marketing hype? Today I'm giving you my full honest review after 1 year using Alpha Picks, and I will cover how it works, what I liked and what I didn't like, how I incorporated the picks in my personal portfolio, and what my performance has been, and whether or not I'm keeping the subscription. Let's dive in. So what is Alpha Picks? Alpha Picks is a stock recommendation service created by Seeking Alpha. Here's the basic idea. It's 2 stock picks per month, focused on long-term and buy-hold investments, based on quantitative model, meaning it's data-driven, not emotional, not based on your emotions and your gut feelings. Plus a short thesis for each stock, ongoing performance track, and clear entry and exit signals. Think of it like a stock curation service. They filter thousands of stocks down to the top ideas based on a proven system. So how does it actually work? Each month you get a simple breakdown of the new pick, a link to the stock's quant score, which measures different variables, including things like, for example, valuation, growth, profitability, momentum, and earnings revision. So it's a mix, as you can see, of technical and fundamental analysis. And this is important because it has different implications, an explanation on why it was chosen, and alerts when they perform or when they recommend selling. As I mentioned before, this is a sort of signaling system for buys and sells for the stocks that they choose. They will tell you when to pick a stock when a stock is selected, showing clearly the moment when they buy and also the moment when they sell if the stock is eventually removed from the Alpha Picks portfolio. You don't get a deep dive 20-page research reports. It's meant to be quick, structured, and easy to act on. Alpha Picks aims to hold the stocks for at least, or aims you to hold the stocks for at least 6 months, sometimes longer. So it is designed for patient, long-term investors. Don't think of it as a trading signaling system where you buy Monday and sell on Friday. As I will mention later on, this, in my opinion, presents certain problems and limitations, and some picks can be held in the portfolio too long after they have already created or started a drop. For new investors, Alpha Pick recommends different ways to start investing on their picks. For one, buy at least 5 strong buy rated Alpha Picks from the existing portfolio. As we will see later on, when I show you the tool, there are several ratings for each of the overall for the portfolio stocks, from a strong sell to buy to strong buy. There's different gradations, different ratings, so you can sort the list of stocks based on this rating and just buy the ones with the highest ratings. Buy the entire portfolio, that's the second option, using the allocations in the portfolio tab, as you will see later on. I'm not sure about this strategy currently, as the number of picks is about 35 at the moment, and it might feel like more like a mini ETF right now. You can also use Alpha Picks as an idea generation tool. This is the one I like. Read the analysis of each pick and choose the stocks that suit your strategy. I will also explain how I have incorporated these picks in my portfolio and my personal performance, what my personal performance has been on those picks. So let's talk about my experience. What is it like in real usage? I'll tell you the good. The good is that the idea stocks or the stock ideas were generally high quality companies, no penny stocks or wild speculation. These are stocks with good fundamentals and growth prospects. The quant model for Alpha Picks takes into consideration variables like P ratio, revenue, or debt into this rating that they create. I found new ideas I wouldn't have discovered easily with my own research or by myself. One of the best performance has been Upload Incorporation, for example, where I multiply my investment by multiple times. This process saved me time for the portion of my portfolio that I allocate to individual stocks. Filtering is hard if you do it manually, and there are things that you simply don't take into consideration in regular filters, like, for example, momentum. In regular filters, you can usually filter by P ratio, return on capital, revenue, but not momentum. They are transparent. They show past performance clearly, so the results are totally audited, and you will be able to see, what is the actual. You will see that in the tool today in my video. Where markets are uptrending, I see Alpha Picks like a leverage on the SP500, like a leverage bet on the SP 500, based on past performance and what you will see later in the video. Alpha Picks is usually a 3x on the performance of the S&P 500, as we will see later on. But bear in mind that this comes with a negative aspect too, so that I will touch on this aspect later on in a minute. The not so good, only 2 picks per month. If you want lots of choices, this isn't it. I think for long-term buy and hold investors, it should be okay. though. The write-ups are short. If you want to get a super deep understanding on a company, you still have to do your own homework. If you want to get a super deep understanding on a company, you still have to do your own homework. Some picks felt familiar if you already read Alpha Picks or Seeking Alpha premium articles. You have to manage your expectations as well. Not every pick is a winner. There will be picks that are actually losing money, and you will see that actually in the list that I will show later on, at least in my personal portfolio. And this is an important one. Sometimes I feel that it takes too long for Alpha Picks to give up on bad picks. I generally have sold down trading positions earlier than Alpha Picks did in the first place, or eventually, and some of them continue to fall afterwards and were sold by Alpha Picks at some point. One example is Giga Cloud Technology. Momentum is an important factor taken into consideration to incorporate a pick in the portfolio, which I like and is usually not taken into consideration by value investors, where they simply look at fundamentals and sometimes catch falling knives, in my opinion. I don't think you will catch falling knives with Alpha Picks, but when the market is bearish, I feel that the downside potential is much higher in the Alpha Picks selection of stocks than the S&P 500. This is coupled with the positive that I was talking about before. In my opinion, it is a 3x on the S&P 500. It's a 3x bet, but the downside potential is also higher. I feel that Alpha Picks could manage this better. When one of the picks goes downhill, I feel that it takes too long for the algorithm to give up. So how does Alpha Pick fit into my portfolio? I'm currently expanding my multi-asset portfolio with a 100K contribution, as you have probably seen or learned from my previous videos, which I will leave down in the description. And I use Alpha Picks as a satellite around my core holdings. Here's how I do it. Between 95 and 98% of my capital stays in broad ETFs, world stocks, dividends, bonds, gold, and managed futures. And only about 2 to 5% is allocated to individual stocks, and that's where Alpha Picks comes in. As I mentioned before, I view it as a curated watch list. Not every pick gets automatic or gets to be an automatic buy, but every pick gets a deep look. And since downside protection is important in my overall strategy, this is why I keep the Alpha Picks portion of my portfolio rather small. This way, even if a few picks don't work out, they don't derail my broader portfolio strategy. So how has Alpha Picks performed against the S&P 500? According to Seeking Alpha's own tracking system, with current performance, Alpha Picks has an annualized return of about 44% since it began in 2022. One important factor is that the strategy started shortly after the bottom of the, or before the bottom of the 2022 bear market, and this is compared to the S&P 500, which is about, in that same period, was about 15% in the same period. As I mentioned before, this is a 3x bet on the S&P 500 for Alpha Picks. I'm monitoring things closely because this bear market will test the resilience of the Alpha Picks portfolio. We didn't have such a bear market in the past since the bottom of the 2022 bear market, and the Alpha Picks authors have in the past used more defensive picks when things become turbulent. But again, my feeling is that the downside potential is much higher than the market, as well as the upside. So you have to take that into consideration. In my 1 year experience, the service is holding up relatively well. A few picks are slightly ahead of the S&P 500, a few lagging, but no disaster. Overall, less volatile than picking random tech stocks, but much more volatile than the S&P 500, which is expected, given the type of smaller cap or some smaller cap stocks that are incorporated into the portfolio. Bear in mind that some picks are incorporated when they are in a high uptrend momentum. So although this could be an indicative that the stock could keep up going or going up, there is also the risk of a pullback if the market turns bearish, and this is what we have seen in the recent pullback. If we look at the last 3 months' performance, Alpha Picks has provided a negative 7% in comparison to the S&P 500 5%, which is not a disaster, but is an indication of the downside potential of the portfolio, as well as the upside potential, as we saw before with the CAGR provided by the portfolio. Alpha Picks is great for you if you're a long-term investor holding 6 months minimum your stocks. If you want structured stock ideas featured by a proven model, which is the quant model for Alpha Picks, you have a strong ETF base, which is my case, but want to enhance returns with individual stocks. And I don't think it's designed to be hands-off, by the way, as I believe the downside risk could be better managed, and sometimes Alpha Picks can be late in reacting to stock downtrends in the picks. You already feel overwhelmed by managing 10 or more positions, because again, the number of positions can get quite large. At the moment, it's about 35. Or if you want to build a portfolio of just stocks on AlphaPix, at least this is too risky for me, and you have to be able to stomach the ride. This service, I think, is best. It works best when it's used in combination with your own due diligence, not as a blind buy list. Okay, so here is the AlphaPix website, and as you can see, there are different sections. If I have to go to the AlphaPix section in Seeking Alpha, and you will be able to see the main 4 sections, which is the analysis, the portfolio performance, and the about. So the analysis, this is where you can see all the articles that AlphaPix used to analyze the stocks. And again, let's just take one example. This is the analysis, or apart from the stock analysis, there is every week there is a market cap, which is okay. It talks a little bit about the the macro environment, tariffs, why things have spiked in the last few days, and why things have escalated. And I find very interesting the comment section, because here is where other users get to comment, and you can play this in audio as well, which is might be interesting as well. So if I go back to the main section, so this is, for example, one stock selection. There is usually a webinar replay or webinar with a replay and the transcript, and this is the video that replays the webinar, and this is the article specifying what the pick was and why they picked the stock. It's quite it's about 2-3 pages. It's not too bad, but it fits the purpose, right? You don't want to have deep research on the stock. Just trust the AlphaPix criteria about momentum, fundamentals, and so on, and then you just read the article and learn about the stock, and you do your own due diligence, as I mentioned before, or you just pick the stock and invest in it. This is the portfolio section. As you can see here, there is the total return has been since 2022, near the bottom of the bear market. It's been 134%, as opposed to the SP 500 45%. So again, this is to me, and you can see here, you will see in the about section as well. Well, let's go to the different performance timeframes. So you can see here in 1 month it's been -5% as opposed to -4% for the S&P 500. In 3 months, -18% as opposed to -9% for the S&P 500. In 6 months, 6 versus 5 or 7 versus 5. And in 1 year, 7 versus 9. So we will take a look at since inception, it's been 134 and 45. So again, we will take a look at the overall, in the about section, you can see a better description or a better representation of the chart. But to me, it's a 3x on the S&P 500. And here's the picks, right? So there's about 35 picks at the moment. And what I was talking about is that you can actually rate by rating if you want to pick the 5 strongest picks. And this will tell you, based on the quantitative model, which is momentum, fundamentals, articles in AlphaPix. All this is taken into consideration as variables in the quant rating, and this is the result of that. Okay, and you can see also the holding, the percentage of each of the holdings in the portfolio, and the return. So we can see that there is clear winners. For example, Uploving Corporation, which was my clear winner, now is a hold, but it's been multiplied by 5 times or 6 times better, right? So these are, but there are others. If you sort by low performance, there's others that are about 50% down. This is why I feel that the stocks could be sold before they go down that much. One example for me was Giga Cloud Technology. I sold when it was like 30% down, and eventually it went like 50%. Okay, so in the about section, this is where you get all the the performance over time, starting in 2022, which is almost the bottom of the bear market, and it's been always like 3x, as you can see here. At the top of the performance before this latest bear market, it was almost 100% for the AlphaPix and 60% for the S&P 500. So that's 3x, right? At this point, it was 34% and 130%, so that's 3x again. and at this point it was 45 and 134 it is, which is almost a 3x, yeah, more or less, like something like that, yeah. So to me, you can see that when it falls, when things drop, they drop much faster than the S&P 500. But when they go up much faster as well, right? That's the difference between the two. So it's a type of investment that have to. For me, is as I mentioned before in the video, and as I will mention later on, is a limited part of my portfolio, but it fits the purpose. I can't stomach a minus 60, 70%, which is something that you might get at some point, right? So I don't want that risk in my portfolio, at least not in high amounts or in a large portion of my portfolio. And here is what recommends the different ways in which you can start. As I mentioned before, buy 5 stocks, buy the entire portfolio with the highest ratings in the portfolio tab, and use Alpha Picks as an idea generation. So after 1 year, will I keep using my Alpha Picks? Yes, for now. It is not perfect, it is not magic, but it gives me structured, high quality ideas that I can layer into my portfolio research without burning hours searching. I think the price now is about $4.99 a year, which is about 40 euro per month. So depending on the portfolio size that you allocate to Alpha Picks, it can be very well profitable. And my gains are well above the cost of the service, while keeping it just to 5% of my overall portfolio. So let me know what you think in the comments. Have you used Alpha Picks? And if so, what has been your experience? I would love to learn your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.